Today, the oral transmission, or rather the class today we're going to have is Sangha in modern time. And the oral transmission I'm going to give you is the 3 principal aspects of the path by Tsongkhapa. Why did I choose this topic? The responsibility for the Sangha in this modern time. For Buddhists, especially people like us who are living in this 21st century, we definitely have to have a sense of responsibility. So I really want to address that. And then the second thing I want to address is that the 3 principal aspects of the path, which is a teaching from Gelugpa tradition. Why? Because I really want to address that all the schools, all the sects are really not contradicting with one another. So that's my 2 goals of this class. The first one is we need to know what our time is like. We should know what we should do in this special time. What's the crisis that we're facing in this special time? I want to address our responsibilities first. What responsibility? For Buddhists, I know that you're very devoted, have lots of faith. Maybe you have never really thought too much about the world, about the society. They probably only very simply thinking that I just want to practice Dharma diligently, especially for the monastics. And for the lay practitioners, they're probably thinking that I just want to seize all my time and opportunity to practice and study the Dharma. And at the time of death, I hope that I have no regret and would be reborn in Sukhavati. And that's what they really want to, that's what they aspire. A few days ago, when I addressed the topic of environmental protection, many people probably think that, yes, I understand that there's a climate change, there's environmental issue in this world, but what can I do? I understand that we have great responsibility and there's a long way to go. We should really have a sense of responsibility. We should then own that responsibility to ourselves. To become a practitioner in this modern time, and as a practitioner, we should then take up responsibility and practice according to our own individual capacity. And if you could do that wholeheartedly, then at least you won't feel regret at all. Of course, this kind of practice is not that easy. Many people probably think that practice is easy. 2 or 3 years. If I don't succeed after 2 or 3 years, if I don't have any insights by then it must be that either it's the Dharma's problem or my guru's problem, or this is just not for me. And for this kind of people, I really want to say that you are too simplistic in terms of thinking what Dharma is and what practice is. Because whatever worldly knowledge that you're learning, it takes a long period of time to have a whole grasping to it. And there are people who give up halfway. Why is that? Mostly because they didn't even start they didn't start the whole path with the right understanding and with the right positioning of what the Dharma is. Therefore, today what I really want to say is that as Buddhists, I really hope that do not have that simplistic mindset in terms of thinking what Dharma is or what practice is. We have to have a bigger perspective. We have to then take up more responsibilities of this society, of this world. We should have a sense of crisis. Why? Why crisis? Sometimes I ponder on myself, especially when I read some news. The research from Pew, the number that they came up recently is that the number of Muslims is growing rapidly from 2010. By 2050, the number would reach to the population of the world, of 1/3 of the world's population. By 2075, then that's the year the number of Muslims will surpass the number of Christians. This is the prediction by Pew in terms of the population. Before, in the world, Christianity has the bigger power in terms of population or the kind of power that they hold in society. But because of the young people nowadays, they're not interested in Christianity anymore, and the senior Christianity are now either passing away or not really making much influence in the society. And on top of that, their birth rates are rather low. So in the next 10 or 20 years, the number of Buddhists, how about for Buddhists? In fact, the number that is predicted by Pew it's roughly about 50 million, and the number is not going to fluctuate too much. The number might increase or might not increase. In fact, it will decrease. Nowadays, we don't really have a planned birth rate control or anything, and because nowadays the lay practitioners don't really enjoy family life and they don't want to have more children, so that's more of a natural birth control for them. The lay practitioners nowadays, whomsoever take the vows and they don't want children, they have a sense of renunciation mind. In other tradition, Muslim and Christians, their children, when they are born, they're already recognized. Their children already have this sense of recognition that they are Muslim and Christians. And I think Buddhism should do the same. Buddhist family should also have such tradition. Once the children are born, they should recognize themselves as Buddhists. In the past few years, the power of Muslim is growing rapidly, especially in European countries. You will notice that the whole world will then get more influenced by Muslim. This is something that we should consider in how we should survive. And another one is Judaism. Nowadays, in Judaism, lots of their religious teachings and religious means are then spread it out through technological means. The Jews are really smart. They created so many technological gadgets and many means that could then propagate their teachings as well. What I really want to say today is that as Buddhists, we should not just hold the prayer wheels and hold the mala and chanting Vajrasattva mantra, and that's what we do. And the next generation would copy us and also practicing Vajrasattva mantra all the time. That's our next generation would do exactly the same. I think the Buddhists are extremely cute because whatever the world changes, we don't really think too much about the external world. We, in fact, all the time would confess our past misdeeds and only think about our own misdeeds and not thinking about the external world. On one hand, it's very good. On the other, I think we definitely also need to look at the external world as well. In the past, the world doesn't change as much, but nowadays it changes so fast. In this age of 5G, the facial recognition and lots of security problems would continuously to occur. Lots of the illegal crimes would be much easier to be conducted by people who have such resources. They can even replace the person's video of the one person's face on the video with big data. And in such kind of a special age, how can we Buddhists then sit there and meditate and then retreat and then chant mantra and then confess our misdeeds, and then another one standing there and saying that started creating problems in between the Sangha. So for Buddhists, if we do not then talk about how we can propagate Dharma, how we can then create a future for us in our daily life, during our mundane life, and we don't really do anything to help the society, then how can we then continue? In lots of the teachings of how to run a corporation, it talks about there must be a main person, a main leader in a corporation. But if everyone rely upon this core person, this main leader, but what if this main leader pass away? Does this whole corporation would fall apart then? That's why we need to cultivate the next generation and cultivate the new talents. There are places where although there are main leader, but the religious group would have a rather secular, too much of a secular approach of religion. For example, what does that mean, secular? It means that nowadays people would say that who is Manjushri? And people would say that, oh, Manjushri is a symbol of wisdom, and so and so. They only would use concepts to then explain. And there's no profound Dharma teachings anymore. People only think about think in a very shallow way. But the religion is not really passed on. The lineage cannot pass on anymore because of such secular changes in this world. The secularization of religion. Another thing is that in this modern time, if we do not have a grasp onto technology, then the whole world is using really high technology of 5G, and the Buddhists are using Nokia that still stays in 2G time. We hold this black mala, and we don't really know how to use any kind of technological gadgets or platforms. I think Buddhists who had such trainings of technology, I think you really should continue to use the knowledge that you studied before. You can then develop a new software and use developed and new hardware, new software, and the more front software development and so on. Otherwise, the Buddhists are just like herdsmen. Yes, you have lots of faith, but how can you live in this modern world? You can't even make a living, because this world nowadays is ever-changing. The second thing I want to address is that in this special time, we Buddhists should cultivate talents and train the new generations. So for those of you who had knowledge of modern technology, who had more experience of different areas of knowledge, then you should pass that knowledge on to the next generation. That's the second. And third one is that as Buddhists, then we should have framework in terms of our management. If we have a framework, then we can go as a river that goes into the ocean together. Otherwise, if each of us are going into the ocean as drops of water, we will dry up halfway. So Buddhists, if we want to survive in this modern era, we really need to have a framework. A framework that has really humanistic, that is very modern, that has a way of good management. We should have such kind of framework, just as how nowadays there are so many successful corporations and enterprise. We should then try to learn from them. In the past, Buddhism is the center of education, the center of culture, and so on. But nowadays, as in Vinaya Sutra, it says that the framework of management of Sangha should be very detailed.
Ya, sadu gajendo, sadu mumbuton yere, buntuju, ya, gajendo to, mumbuton to yere, imare la chukarendo.
He said that he only chanted 20,000 times a day. That's not enough.
Yeah. Yeah, you're bunter. The Sado Chaniri Mato, the Yijape Calicodoa. Yeah, Taman 5 years ago.
They aspired to chant 100,000 times of Vajrasattva, but it seems that it's going to take them a long time because they only chant 20,000 a day.
刚才我说这个
I was saying that
佛教团体呢要有什么呢？内在的这种
Buddhist
严密的
Sangha should have
实际上是
a framework.
就是通心的，应该有共同的信仰。
It should then based on a common aspiration.
有共同的信仰。
Not that we do something based on our own preference, but we should have a unified aspiration so that we can face all the crises that comes up in this world. Because many things could happen. How can we face all those kind of crises? We should then have a strategic thinking in terms of running such framework. Any kind of organization, any kind of community, they all run with this unified ideology or this unified aspiration. When this kind of thinking, with this kind of ideology or aspiration is under attack, we should think about what we should do as a Buddhists. In terms of the framework, nowadays I think Buddhists are, it's really not a Buddhist forte. Each and every one of us, in this modern time, it's very easy for us to get lost behind. In different events, in different communities, different time, we should all have a sense of unity as Buddhists together. And the next one I would like to address is that we should then have also a bigger perspective. We cannot live one day and count it as a day and don't worry about tomorrow. We should then have a plan, thinking about what we're going to do for the next decade and two. What are we going to do for the next 100 and 200 years? How Dharma can then pass on to the next generation and so on. For example, if I were to have a small center, then I need to think about how I can run this center even after I pass away. Maybe write down some will or something. It's not that for Buddhists who are learning, I also think that you should also have a plan for what you need to learn. Don't just think that you finish this year of teaching and learning and then that's it. You don't know what's going to happen next, and that's still too short-sighted. How we can develop further as a group. Do not think that, oh, this is my personal action. There's nothing like that inside this group. Do not think in such a way. When there's an avalanche, each and every snowflake is responsible. Do not think that you are innocent, you've never done anything. In fact, I think every one of the Buddhists should have such a sense of responsibility, should have a sense of altruistic aspiration to help others and offer whatever service and knowledge they can offer to the society. Maybe some of them have the knowledge of high tech, then they can then spread it and use that to help others. Let's look at a Muslim. They have right now 2.7 billion in this world. How many people do? And there are other religions that they would use benefits. They would give benefits to people and then attract others. In Buddhist, in some of the Christianity philosophy, I think lots of their teachings are quite attractive to people. Charity, building hospitals, and funding education, things like such. And they are doing this to benefit the human society because it is needed. It is needed in the society, and that's meaningful. So I think for Buddhists, we should do that as well. And what's more important is that Buddhists should have this long-term planning. Do not just think that I only need to practice 1 or 2 days, that's it. you need to have a much, much longer perspective.
就这是第一个问题。然后第二个问题呢，我们这个佛教
So in general, that's the first big area I want to address. The second big subject I want to address is that in Laronggar in 2017, in fact, we have already reached our limitation of residents. We do not accept any new residents or newcomers to come and study anymore. But for Buddhists who are studying in Sanghas, then I think I really hope that in any places, in any of the centers or Sangha, I think it's quite important to have new Buddhists to join in to study the Dharma. In general, the number of Buddhists are not growing as fast. The number of other religions, religious personnel are growing much faster. And I really encourage those new Buddhists and people who want to learn Buddhism to then participate in the step-by-step system of learning. So for those of you who join this Sangha or any of those Buddhist study Sangha, then you should know what you're doing here. You should know what is your objective. I've told many of you before that our platform is to provide services and provide all kinds of support and help so that you can study. You can study systematically. So if you want to study, then you're very welcome to join this platform. If you want to study, that is. But if you have other agenda behind, then I suggest you not to. I just recently noticed that many Buddhists with different agendas would join this platform. They would first, maybe some of them have this mind of gathering wealth. They would then get a lot of people to then join this group, and then they have all different kind of excuses. Oh, I am doing this fundraising for my guru, for the Dharma activity of the guru, for the Dharma assembly. In fact, I have never said that we need money, that we are gathering the money for any of the Dharma assembly or anything. We've never said that. And there are also a second kind of people who have this agenda to then promote and propagate their own guru or some events or even illegal events. So for these kind of group of people, I really do not suggest you to join any Sangha. When people complain that, well, why don't I have the freedom of speech then? Why can't I say that this is something meritorious, this is very beneficial to others? Why can't I say that? Why can't I promote that? In fact, each and every Sangha and community all have different rules. It takes us great effort to build this platform, and this platform is strictly to provide you support to study and nothing else. Therefore, it is not to stop you from your freedom of speech or anything. Just think about it. Our platform is completely free, and we have nothing to gain from it. I do not allow the propagation. I do not allow any of the advertisement of other gurus or other teachers or other events or even myself. I, in fact, do not even allow any of those excuses for building monasteries or building stupas or anything. There are people nowadays who would use such excuses to do fundraising, and this kind of fundraising is fraud. And it's quite dangerous as well, especially when it is using excuses of Buddhism. So I really hope that for new Buddhists as well as senior Buddhists, when you're drawing this platform, I hope that in this platform you then diligently study. And I do not encourage you to use all different kind of excuses and different kind of agenda behind your motivation and then join this platform. Because after a while you will expose yourself, and then it's really not good to be exposed in front of others. And this method is not good either. So, I know it doesn't sound so flattering, but I have to address this because the people who are only using the platforms that we built for study to attract people, to attract, to network, and then to fundraise, and so on. And in any platform, there are people who are simple, and they would fall into any kind of traps. Therefore, in order to build a pure and trustworthy platform, I really encourage you not to do any of those things said above. 8 years, 10 years, or 20 years, if you want to study in the preparatory classes or the seminar classes or the Vajrayana classes, then you can do that. In the morning and the afternoon, I had a long session of meeting, and I was then in discussion with the management Sangha and talking about how we can then manage better the people who finished the 5 preliminary practices earlier. Then they can also join the Vajrayana classes, and how we can avoid chaos, but still benefit each one of the genuine practitioners. In fact, we really had to go through lots of discussions and lots of considerations, and sometimes we even have conflicts based on our opinion. But these kind of troubles are worth of going through, because this is all for the benefit of each and every one of our students. It's difficult to maintain a center, such as Larungar. There are people who praise us and people who slander us. It really doesn't matter that much. Lots of masters tried their best to maintain this center, to maintain this fruition that passed down from Pontsog Rinpoche, from his aspiration. Modern centers or ancient centers, any of the centers, it is built on the great efforts of many people. And for people who are using these centers and platforms, I think you should really spend some time to contemplate this and understand the people's effort behind. Then next one is that for people who studied for a rather longer period of time, for these people, I really hope that you do not become the kind of person that doesn't really taste the flavor of Dharma and then lost halfway through and give up halfway through. So for the senior students who studied for a long period of time, I think majority of you are really good, because for those of you who live in big cities, I think you must have spent lots of effort and time to study, especially under the study during the time that we didn't really have a framework. But for these senior students, I really want to say that at a certain time when you studied, when you finish studying, you should graduate. Because I don't want you to then continue to then not finishing one course and coming back again and again and again. Because for people who studied for a long period of time, after a while, you see the peers are already graduated from university and you're still staying in primary school. It's just really not good. There are people who then have very good influence, who made very good influence inside the Sangha. And nowadays, especially this time, what I notice is that people are quite familiar with the Larangar's chanting. Is it raining again?
是不是？不是的吧？啊，今天下雨下得很厉害，好多
Lots of rain.
出现那个水灾也是很。
And there are lots of flood going on.
是吧
Raining?
这样的，我们这个在这边的话呢，就是一个是
Over
大家
here,
念诵方面，就是以后也要
I encourage you to continuously to participate in the before and after class chantings, including the rhythm is really important. The next one is prayer wheels. I noticed that many of our Sangha members are using it. So wherever you are, you should use it as well. Of course, I'm not asking you to then use it in public places where it's really inappropriate to use the prayer wheels. For people who are sitting in the train, who are then on the sitting on the airplane, just look around to see if people would object to your action. So be a little bit more considerate. Anyhow, I noticed that people here are using prayer wheels while chanting. This is quite important. I think I've already taught on the merit of using prayer wheels. And maybe I will also translate a bit more later, because recently I read a few more teachings on the merit of using prayer wheels. We should really then take this into our hearts.
我们最近呢，就是在这里啊，道友们的话，可能
And then
怎么讲啊？就是正在念诵的时候
，one more thing I noticed.
但是还有一些中间的上午和下午的那个课余时间的话
Yes, it's important to use it while you're chanting.
我指的是这里面啊，就这里面，因为我们
And people who are here, I also encourage you to not go out for the in-between session. If you don't have special cases and special things to do outside, then I really encourage you not to go out too often. Because during our chanting, when it's really noisy and chaotic outside, I think it's very distracting. So it is the best to just stay and chant. This time, what I notice is that online and over here in the shrine hall, I really notice people have lots of lots of faith, devotion, and lots of sincere confession. So that's very good. Anyhow, that's just a side note I would like to make to the management over here. To sum up is that the management, in terms of management, on one hand, do not pass it on to the new people, for people who are so inexperienced, and then you can run out and have a field trip or somehow. And then what I notice is that some of the experienced volunteers, they would pass on their jobs to inexperienced ones, and then they would use the excuse of saying that, well, I'm doing this only because I think it's a good opportunity to train the new people. For Buddhists, even if you're not on post, do not have jealousy, do not have competitive towards the ones who are on post, according to an a Chinese master. He said that the talented ones, they have lots of arrogance. And I notice that's very true. But I really hope that for the Buddhists, at least you can then get rid of jealousy, at least not to be so competitive to one another. The view and the opportunity of and the practice that you can have is, in fact, quite rare. It's not so easy to attain in such long samsara. So for senior practitioners, do not see opportunities of a volunteer and see it as really valuable and cherish it. And the next thing I would like to address is that volunteers and people who aspire to work for the Sangha, serve the Sangha, I think it's quite important, because without those of you who are willing to serve this group and this community, then it's very difficult for this community to survive. Many sanghas, they really want, many sanghas, they really need people to volunteer. Young people nowadays, what I notice is that they're very good at talking, but they're not really acting on their words, and they're not down to earth. This is not good. There are different kinds of people. Of course, there are people who are good at words, talking about this is my goal, this is my perspective, this is my vision. And there are people who are very good at doing it, and I think that's the best. If you can only talk about it and not putting it into your action, then there's nothing can be done. For people who have experience, for people who have experience in management, on one hand, we need to then train the next generation or train the inexperienced ones. For example, over here, Khenpos and Khemos are not, they don't have a retirement plan or so, because we don't want them to retire. They have to stay on the post, and they will continuously to stay on post and then continue to train people, because this kind of people with experience is quite precious. For the important management people, I think sometimes it is necessary to ask them to take a rotary to then change their post from time to time, but do not then just leave the Sangha. This is quite a pity. Do not feel hurt when people ask you to step down from your post. In fact, it is not personal. It is not necessary for you to completely back off from the Sangha. This is quite a pity if you do so. You can then help others with your experiences. As Mahayana practitioners, I really encourage you to be more proactive, to proactively taking up responsibilities, because nowadays the Sangha is in fact not so easy to maintain, and we need all kinds of people to work in synergy. For example, you can provide the place to practice as a center. You can then provide material. You can provide monetary providing, and you can provide your efforts. Any kind of providings, any kind of efforts is very much appreciated and needed, so that this Sangha, this community is needed. So in the second big subject, there are three things I would like to address. The first one is how the new Buddhists, how the beginners should study, and the second one is how the seniors should then contribute and what they should do, and the third one is for the people who have this aspiration to volunteer and who have this aspiration to serve the Sangha. I often think to give you some gifts and rewardings for those people who serve this Sangha, but because there are so many of you and it's very difficult to do so. But deep down in my heart, I have great appreciation for all of you and keep you deep in my heart. For lots of groups, if we want to spread the compassion and wisdom of Buddhism to different groups, it's difficult if we only have one or two persons without a group that has a synergy. Nowadays, we have lots of conflicts of culture, conflicts of technology. Talking about this, I think it's very easy for me to feel anxious. The clashes of Western and Eastern culture. Nowadays, the Eastern culture is then swallowed by the Western culture, and in terms of religion and culture are also in conflicts with technology such as AI, and it's going to face great crisis. And the Western culture are going to then take opportunities to diminish the Eastern culture if we don't try to preserve it. Nowadays, if we can rely upon technology and knowledge and everyone's service and knowledge and synergy, then we still have a possibility to preserve what we have. And there's another possibility. That is, nowadays, not many people still have this precious philosophy of altruism, of Mahayana teachings. Nehru, the Indian president, he said that Buddhism is much more needed than the weapons that we have nowadays, such as nuclear weapons and nitrogen bombs and so on. But it's very difficult because the culture, technology, and different conflicts are controlling our life. And everyone's living anxiety, just as the teachings of just as the teachings say that when children are playing outside, but the playground is on fire, it feels like that. The international politics and international economics nowadays are really chaotic. So for Buddhists, we should use our biggest weapon, which is altruism. And if we do not have this synergy to work together and promote altruism, then this light of altruism is probably not bright enough for others to notice or to attach importance to. Therefore, we should really develop our vision. We should have a bigger perspective. We should have this vision of the globe, the vision of the society, and the vision of the whole world, instead of nowadays how Buddhists are only taking care of their practices and focusing on what they're practicing, their sukhavati and their mantras and so on. But I would like to ask those of you who only focus on your personal practice, are you ready for any of those big changes that's going to happen in this world? I think now I'm going to give you the oral transmission before time runs out. 3 principal aspects of the path. This time, I'm chanting this. I'm giving you this oral transmission because this is to create auspicious connection for all of you to have a good connection with all different sects and schools of Buddhism. Tomorrow, I'm going to give you the oral transmission of 37 practices of Bodhisattva, which is the Sakyapa teaching. A few days ago, the teaching was from Jonampa, the Uttara Tantra Shastra. Yesterday, the teaching was Nyingma, that illuminating the path of liberation. Day after tomorrow, then I would then give you the teaching of Gundam Chopo. Gundam Chopo doesn't have any school. So he is Nyingma, but he also studied in Gelugpa. He went to many different places. He died around 49, I think. But he's also quite someone inside the Tibetan Buddhism, rather mystical. He speaks English fluently. And in some history, it is said that Gundam Chopo also was traveling with him for many years and translated Bodhisattva Charyavatara back then into English. But around that special time, he was a very special person, according to Tibetan Buddhism. I'm going to share all of them. I'm going to share some of them with you from each of the schools. And by the way, tomorrow I'll also share some of the Kagyupa's teaching as well. Over here in the mandala, inside the mandala, we have also the different schools from Han Buddhism, from Tibetan Buddhism, from all different traditions. There are teachers nowadays that they only teach from their own schools and don't even quote from other schools, and they're very close-minded. I don't think it's good. We should then have synergy, develop the synergy as all Buddhists, not grasping onto school, not to develop narrow-mindedness, but open-mindedness. Also, Buddhists, I think you should also it's very good that you have good devotion towards your guru, but do not scold other gurus and do not then slander other gurus. It's good that you praise your own guru, practice your own guru. That's fine because everyone's connection to different gurus are different, to different schools are different, and it may be based on because of your guru's compassion. You are studying with him, but do not praise your own guru, but slander others' gurus. Ponsok Rinpoche, at the later part of his teaching, he continuously to emphasize that it's quite important to praise your own teacher, but not slandering others. Do not be so biased towards your teacher. In our Sangha nowadays, they would say that, because this guru is also from Larangar, so why can't I promote that guru? Why do I have to then not say anything over here? In fact, as Buddhists, we should understand what is the rule, and we should follow those rules, and we should know what is we should then have a very clear understanding of how each and every platform runs, and it's very important for you to not fall into the two extremes. When you fall into extremes, you won't be able to succeed in anything. So do not overly slander other schools. Do not overly then blend all schools and lineages together either. In Larangar, we nowadays have such kind of development. It's only because we have the pith instructions from the lineage masters. And this kind of pith instructions is on how to deal with worldly life as well. This is quite important. Do not have simplistic view of how world work. Originally, I really want to give a brief teaching on the three principal aspects of the path, but maybe we don't have enough time. The first stanza says that I then prostrate to all the masters, the very essence of all the Buddhas teaching the path that is praised by noble bodhisattvas and the interest of all the fortunate ones, desiring liberation to the best of my ability, I now set forth. Tsongkhapa started by stating that I try my best to give teachings. Ponsok Rinpoche said that, of course, Tsongkhapa is the manifestation of Mipa, is a manifestation of Manjushri. Of course, he can do that.
남덕 님종메 버 준소이 뎀제 동일 지위 탐메라 찔라간바 이경 리전남 근린 정신 통망 님종자首先是要这个
And first one, you should then give rise to renunciation, generate a renunciation mind, because without renunciation, you won't be able to be liberated from samsara. So as a practitioner, you should first then generate renunciation. I think majority of you should understand this, would know this. But it's really important to reflect back in yourself and see whether if you have developed it. For those of you who heard this before, I know that you must have heard about the term renunciation mind, but have you gotten it yet, or even a tiny bit?
다름주니 같sel라 놈에바 일라콤비 첸디 나시도 렘제모론 코르 등으로라 영양산비 심이 나시도 나处理心修的方法呢就是人生
What's the practice of generating renunciation then? It is to practice impermanence and the infallible of karma. Because once you know that life is impermanent, then you can cut through the grasping towards this life, and if you can do the next one, then you can cut off the grasping to the next life. What is renunciation then? Renunciation is that there's no hope for pleasure of samsara, and there's no longing for any of those samsara pleasure, and you only long for liberation day and night. That is true renunciation. Do you know what a renunciation is? Do you know? Yes? Oh, good.
然后这是处理性啊，就是你们这跟着他了东西了，兄弟这严重结巴了啊，就严重结巴了。然后下面是讲的这个什么菩提心是吧
？Next one is bodhicitta.
在那严重结巴。민중대요 남다선 기기 선반면나 라면 샹치 비펀족 대비 지르면 지르 로든 남지 샹치 심적 깃那么这个处理心呢，就是如果没有被这个菩提心色素的话，
If this renunciation is not embraced by the motivation of bodhicitta, then it will not become the cause for perfect bliss and as about unsurpassed awakening. So the wise one should then generate a supreme bodhicitta. What kind of people can generate? What kind of people can generate bodhicitta then? Or what kind of objects we are generating bodhicitta to then? Are those people who, or those sentient beings who are still swept along the powerful current of the four rivers and tightly bound by the chains of their karma, self-grasping, and thick darkness of ignorance are then of their bondage. They're all tortured and suffering from these three forms of samsara. Therefore, we should really generate bodhicitta. And notice that there are people who really eagerly want to help others, who see that people around them have so much wrong view and negative karma and lots of such negative things that would lead them to sink in samsara. Then that could be called as bodhicitta. If we don't have the wisdom that realizes the nature of things, although you might grow accustomed to renunciation and bodhicitta, you will still be incapable of cutting through conditioned existence as its root. So what does that mean? We need to also generate wisdom, because renunciation and bodhicitta is not enough. It is important to develop the wisdom of Madhyamika. We need to study Madhyamika in order to develop that non-dual wisdom. What is non-dual wisdom then? The non-dual wisdom is that all the phenomena of samsara and nirvana, and for whom any objects of conceptual focus have subsided, has set out up on the path of delighting all the Buddhas. Once we understand this, we are already stepping onto the path of Tathagata, of all the Buddhas. Therefore, it's quite important to study Madhyamika, study emptiness, because Because without such non-dual wisdom, you can only generate enough merit to attain the celestial beings' enjoyments and so on, or human realm, and maybe arhats. And bodhicitta is not enough either. You have to then step onto the path delighting all the Buddhas. That is non-dual wisdom.
Then Sanjay no attempt to me, but don't kill him, Chavi Guani, just so no attempt to don't to Gomba Stoba met. And
what is this emptiness? There are two types: the knowledge that appearances arise unfailingly in dependence, and knowledge that they're empty and beyond all assertion. As long as these two are separate, there cannot be realization of Buddha's wisdom. So the first kind is that when you see emptiness and the form as separate, when you see them as almost black and white, when it's empty, it's not a form. When it's form, it's not empty. And at that time, you are not realized the Buddha's wisdom yet. You have not realized. Tsongkhapa then says over here, saying that yet, when they arise at once, not each in turn, but both together, then although merely seeing unfailing dependent origination certainly is born, and all modes of misapprehension fall apart. That is when discernment of the view has reached perfection. This is quite important. How do you know that if this person have already realized this kind of wisdom or this kind of emptiness, then they at that time in fact have already noticed that the emptiness and form are both together, not really in turn. This is a very special teaching that's given by Tsongkhapa in the next one. At the end, he said that he used the form to then eliminate the extreme of emptiness and use emptiness then eradicate the extreme of form. So what this means is that there is no extreme. Usually they use emptiness to then eradicate form and extreme of form, and then vice versa. But in Gelugpa, their teaching is a little bit different than Imapa's way of teaching. So over here, it means that because of emptiness, because emptiness is form, it talks about how it is not only empty, and because form is emptiness, therefore it is not only solid form either. So this oral transmission, in fact, I received it from Phuntsogor Rinpoche. Therefore, for those of you who received this oral transmission, so that you receive the oral transmission from all the lineage masters, when in this way you have correctly understood the key points of the three principal aspects of the path with withdrawals to solitude, dear son, strengthen your diligence and swiftly accomplish this ultimate and lasting gain. And this advice was given to bhikshu of extensive learning, Losap Drakvipo, and Tsakpo Ompo Ngawang Drekpa. This teaching is to Tsakpo Ompo. So today I've given you the oral transmission of Tsongkhapa's the three principal aspects of the path, and I also address the responsibility that each and every Buddhist should then carry with them. You should have a sense of a crisis. You should have a sense of responsibility. I didn't specifically set up this, but I think I addressed this more spontaneously. But I think this kind of topics are very closely related to our modern life. I'm really happy that you are diligently chanting and hope you continue.